Hi, I'm Mike from Michael's Motor Cars, located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and today I'd like to show you a car that is really pretty incredible. Come on over and take a look at it. If you follow our auctions and look at our history, you will see that I love seeking out and finding really interesting cars, and I love the stories that come with the cars. And you know, we had an MGA recently that was a one-owner car from the 60s. We've had cars that have been one-owners going way back in history. But this car, I think, takes the cake for things we have found. I've been working with a family that's up in New England, up in New Hampshire. And a year or two ago, I bought a Model T from them, an MG from them. And then they called me that an uncle had passed away, and would I come up and look at the cars? That is where I got a Model T that we recently sold on Bring a Trailer. And we also bought two Maxwells. This is one of the Maxwells that we're offering now. The car itself is a 1909 Maxwell. It's a car. What is so fascinating to me about this car, and I didn't realize this when I purchased the car because the guy had died. The family just knew the car had been around for a very long time, and he had been working on it for years and years and years to do a complete and total restoration on the car to a very high standard, very professionally done. I found in all his documents this letter, which we will post, and please take the time and read this because it's the window into what this car is all about. The fellow was Edwin Adams, lived up in Hampton Falls, New Hampshire. He was well known in the collector car community, particularly on old stuff, brass era stuff. On this car, I could see in his notes where he had the steering wheel made for the car. He was working with brass foundries that were casting things for him. He was getting new carburetors cast. So he was at a level that was pretty serious and pretty deep into the field. But there's a letter that's written to the Commissioner of Safety in Concord, New Hampshire, and he's talking about getting this 1909 registered in New Hampshire and trying to make it basically road legal. But what he says that is so fascinating is that his father, who died at 97 years old, and his father was born in the early 1900s, this was his dad's car. And he restored the Model T with his father as a teenager, and this particular Maxwell was special to him. The restoration meant everything because it was his father's car. So here we have a car, assuming that his father purchased this car, we are guessing in the 20s or 30s, and used it and drove it. And then the son, who now was in his 90s, restored this car. So it's not very often we get a car that has been in one family almost its entire life. And it's a turn of the century, brass era Maxwell. So the letter goes with it. It's a phenomenal story on this car. I was just astounded when I found that letter because the current family didn't know. They just knew it was an old car. The car itself, and please watch the driving video where you see that I can't find reverse the first time, and then I read the manuals more and learn about it. We do another video where the car does back up. We had it serviced by a local friend of ours in Lancaster County who loves working on brass era cars. We have all of his handwritten notes. Please read through them. We feel that the car may or may not have been started but was never really driven. So the restoration, as best we can tell, was done in the late 90s and early 2000s. And then we think the car basically has been sitting in very good dry storage. So the car is really, right now, a fresh restoration in terms of the engine needs to be broken in, needs to be run. We did get it running and driving, which you'll see in the video. First and low and high forward gears work, reverse works, all the neutrals work. The car actually steers and drives quite well. The rear brakes work, steering is good. So come on in close and we'll take a lot of photos, but he did a beautiful job. The paintwork on the car is gorgeous. The brass on the radiator is wonderful. He's got the wonderful hand crank, and all of this functions. It all works. That's why it's oily right now. We just had the car running. We did source a pair of brass Maxwell lamps and put them on the car. So these are correct Maxwell lamps it would have come from the factory with. It has all of its Maxwell, essentially hubcaps, but they're hubs, basically. Coming along the side of the car, he did a beautiful job with the leather. This is where the gas tank is. Underneath here, there's a little door with a Maxwell emblem, Maxwell notification. Here's the gas tank for the car. This is all functioning and working properly. We have the plate for the car. This is a new plate, which he had made for the car. That's the correct number for the car. Again, long-term family ownership. This is the box for the coils. And you can tell from the restoration, just beautifully done. And this clearly was a labor of love for this guy. I mean, my goodness, to be able to restore your dad's car, what a treat. It has the outboard rear brakes, so they're external brakes that are clamping on the drum. All of those are working fine. The '09 model, there's nothing here. This is just a shell. There is no trunk in the car. Of course, it's got the 2 seats, the bucket seats. Coming along the side of the car, it does have the brass hoops, so it could have a horn installed. This was where the horn would go, and it would curl around and come up here, the bulb horn. That's what these are. Another brass lamp on this side. The braking system works, as I mentioned, and it does lock, and then you push this to release it. Accelerator pedal works. The oil lubrication system is working. It does respond to being adjusted, so you can adjust these to measure the drip rate of the oil. Spark and retard is working. All of these things are working. So let me pull the hood off and show you the motor. I can definitely see why people get intrigued by these kinds of cars. I think as a mechanic, it's just fascinating to see how all this works. Our mechanic marked all the flywheel to get the timing proper on the car, get the timing correct. This is the brass, of course, the oiling system goes in here, goes in, and then it drips to both cylinders and the central part of the motor. And it is, as I mentioned, it is a running motor. I think it still needs to be tweaked and played with a little bit. The carburetor is working properly. We suspect that one of the coils is firing intermittently, so it kind of the second cylinder comes and goes. But it should be driven. The car needs to be broken in. I also love over here on the side, and we have a photograph of this, the lettering on the transmission, and we have a photograph of that shows it really well. But it's just, you know, a beautifully done car by a fellow who knew the car intimately and also was heavily engaged in the hobby. So the Maxwells are interesting cars. Very interesting history for the Maxwell company. They're a well-known, significant car. If you want to get into or you have a brass era collection, I highly recommend the Maxwell. It actually is very easy to drive. The transmission shifts easily. It goes in and out of neutrals very easily. The motor, for a hand crank motor, starts relatively easily for one of these cars. And so we've had a ball with it. We've really enjoyed this car. And I hope we really find a special home for it. Someone who appreciates the length of ownership of this car. One family since almost the beginning of the car's history. And a son restoring his father's car. That's just pretty neat. So anyway, I could wax on for about an hour because I really like this car. Please ask us any questions you may have. We're happy to answer. Watch the driving video. I do my best with it to drive a Maxwell. And once I learn reverse, it does back up. And please, we invite any inspections, anybody to come and see this car. But it is a very high quality, very well done restoration that essentially is like it was just done yesterday. The car, the paint, and everything is just gorgeous on the car. Thanks for taking the time and watching our video.